Build a multiplayer game in 3 minutes with Placial SDK. Let's get started. I'm creating a new project, naming it. After opening, I add Placial SDK and required assets. I create a folder named Art. I add the ground model we will use, creating a material for the ground, choosing a shader and setting a color, duplicating the material for the player and cubes, setting the main camera background to a solid color, placing the ground into the scene, resizing it, assigning the material, adjusting camera angle and position, creating a sphere for the player, setting its position, assigning material, lowering the ground a bit, adding free cubes to the game, assigning material, duplicating cubes and setting positions, creating an empty object and resetting its transform, adding the required interactable script and naming the game, moving all other objects under it, creating a folder for scripts, creating a new Lua script and naming it, adding Lua behavior to player and assigning the script, double click to open. Start and update are already there. Since we will use physics, I define a rigid body reference, assigning it in start. Writing functions for touch, joystick and keyboard. Converting to vector 2 received by onMove. In touchBegin, I save the first touch position. In touchAlt, I get the delta from the first touch and assign it to a force variable. Then I normalize it. Changing update to fixed update, creating a global variable, assigning the force value to it. Multiplying it with fixed delta time and applying to rigid body. Even 1 pixel of movement gives a unit vector when using touch, so I scale move vector using 2.5% of the screen as reference. I increase the applied force and reset the force in touch end. Back to Unity. Adding rigid body to player object, adding collider to the ground, setting it to convex for performance, adding the input module to the scene, adding rigid body to cubes, and pressing play. The code works. Creating a prefabs folder. To enable multiplayer, I make the player a prefab, then mark it as a network object and network player. Moving physics to the server side, defining a network object reference, assigning it in start. Writing the force vectors to a network variable. This lets the server access force from clients. On the server side, I read the synced network variable, deleting the old global variable. Back to Unity. I define the network variable we used in Lua, type, vector tree, write permissions, owner, using the same name as in Lua. Placing the network manager object in the scene, server will control players so I can hide or delete the player prefab. It's already registered in interactable. I make the cubes prefabs too, enabling network object and sync transform, selecting what to sync. Spawning other cubes from this prefab, creating a script named object to check falling, adding it to the player and cube prefabs. Double-clicking to open it. For reset, I get the rigid body, reset velocity and angular velocity. Create a random unit vector 2, convert to vector 3 and move rigid body there. Writing server-side code to detect if the object falls from the platform. Fallen object respawn after a short delay. We will set the delay in inspector. Calling the function in start to spawn randomly. Back to Unity. Clicking the player object and setting the delay. Doing the same for the cube. Creating a physics material to make objects bounce, increasing the bounce value, assigning the material to player and cube colliders, enabling transform sync for player and multiplayer game is ready. I enter the game info to publish it, take a screenshot and save it as a cover image, clicking build and release. I open the game on 3 web and 1 iOS platform, joining with 4 players at once. As you can see, all games sync perfectly. No servers, no configs, everything is automatic and instant. This way, developers only focus on their games. You can find Placial SDK at litgames.com/Placial.